All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to decode the silent language of knife blades. You know, from the pocket knife you carry every day to a specialized tool in a chef's kit, a blade's shape is telling you a story. It's telling you exactly what it was born to do, and we're going to learn how to read it.
Okay, so let's just dive right in with the big question that stumps, well, pretty much everyone. If they all cut, why in the world do we need hundreds of different shapes? The answer is pretty cool, actually. Each curve, every single angle and point, is a specific solution to a specific problem.
You know, the source material just nails it with this quote. A blade shape, its outline, is basically its resume. It tells you exactly how it's going to behave, how it will slice or pierce or chop, long before you ever make a single cut. It's the difference between a tool that feels like it's a part of your hand and one that just fights you the whole way.
So let's start cracking that code. We're about to see that a blade's shape is never, ever random. It's not just for looks. It is a carefully engineered story of its purpose, and it's written right there in the steel for us to read.
And here's the best part. To read any knife, you only need to understand 3 key parts of its anatomy. I promise, if you get these down, you'll be able to look at almost any blade and just know what it's for, because you'll see how its geometry dictates everything it does. First up is the spine. The easiest way to think of it is as the blade's backbone. It's the structural support. So a thick, straight spine, that's going to give you incredible strength for tough jobs. But if you see a spine that curves or tapers, that knife might be trading some of that raw power for more agility or a sharper point. Okay, next up, we've got the cutting edge, and that curved part we call the belly. And this is where a huge design trade-off happens. A totally straight edge is amazing for direct push cuts, like, slicing open a box. But a big, curved belly gives you way more cutting surface for those smooth, rocking slices. Just picture a chef's knife going to work on some herbs. And finally, we've got the tip, the business end. This is what really determines if you're holding a surgical instrument or a durable workhorse. A superfine needle-like point is perfect for detail work, but a broader, more reinforced tip, that can handle some light prying and poking into tough stuff without you having to worry about it snapping. All right, so now that we've got the basics of the anatomy, this is where it gets really cool. We can actually group pretty much every blade shape out there into just 4 functional families. This simplifies everything and gives us a really clear map of the knife world. So this chart right here, it lays it all out for us. You've got your versatile all-rounders, your finesse-focused slicers, your super tough piercers, and then your hyper-focused, kind of weird specialists. And to really get a feel for this, let's grab one key example from each family and break it down. So first up, we're starting with probably the most common shape you're ever going to see on pocket knives and outdoor tools, the mighty drop point. This thing is the definition of a jack of all trades. And looking at its features, you can totally see why this thing is everywhere. The spine gently curves or drops down to meet the tip. That design puts a whole lot of strong steel right behind the point, making it really robust. You combine that with a nice big belly for slicing, and you've got a knife that can slice an apple, whittle a stick, and open a package, all without breaking a sweat. Okay, so we've seen the all-arounder. Now let's swing to the other side of the spectrum and look at a true specialist. The trailing point is all about finesse. It's about maximizing that cutting edge for one very specific type of motion. Just look at how that spine sweeps way up, right? What that does is create an incredibly long, curved belly, which is perfect for these long, uninterrupted slices. It makes it an absolute champion for tasks that need real finesse, like filleting a fish, where you want to separate things cleanly in one smooth go. But what's the trade-off? Well, that high, delicate tip is definitely not built for piercing. Okay, so we've had finesse. Now let's talk about brute force and penetration. Meet the tanto, a shape that comes straight out of Japanese martial history. I mean, you can't mistake this design. Instead of a smooth curve, you get this really angular, almost chisel-like tip. All that extra steel packed right behind the point makes it incredibly tough. It is literally designed to punch through hard materials without breaking, which is exactly why you see it so often on tactical and rescue knives. So this is the key right here. When you put the drop point and the tanto side by side, you're looking at 2 completely different design philosophies. The drop point tries to balance everything. A strong tip with a useful belly for all-around work. The tanto says, forget the slicing belly, I want an incredibly tough tip for one job, piercing. It's the perfect example of how one little change in geometry creates a massive difference in what the knife can do. All right, last but not least, let's look at one of the weirdest looking but most effective shapes out there, A blade built for a very specific move, the pull cut. The hawkbill's inward curve, that's its superpower. It looks like a talon for a reason. As you pull the knife towards you, that concave edge just hooks and traps whatever you're cutting. Rope, webbing, carpet, and it focuses all that cutting force on one tiny spot. For those jobs, it is absolutely unbeatable. But as you can probably guess, trying to slice a tomato with it would be, well, pretty awkward. So, how do you actually use all this knowledge? Well, here's a simple little framework to help you choose the right blade for what you actually need, not just for what looks cool. It really just boils down to asking yourself 3 simple, honest questions. First, what's the main job? Are you mostly opening Amazon boxes or are you prepping food at a campsite? Second, how tough does that tip need to be? Think surgical precision or miniature pry bar. And finally, be real with yourself about maintenance. Do you want the simple grab-and-go ease of a straight edge, or are you okay with the challenge of sharpening a complex curve? Your answers are going to point you right to the perfect family of blades. So after looking at all these different shapes, the common ones, the weird ones, all of them, it all really comes down to one simple core idea, one principle that governs everything. And this is it. This is the single idea that unlocks everything we've talked about. Geometry dictates behavior. It's really that simple. Once you learn to read a knife's outline, its spine, its edge, its tip, you can predict exactly how it's going to perform. Suddenly, all the guesswork is gone. So now you've got the tools. You can look right past all the marketing fluff and choose a knife based on pure, simple function. You can see the story that's written in its shape. The only question left is what kind of work do you need to get done? Because now you can find the perfect blade to help you tell your story.